so I think we can start now. So Hajar, please start.
Okay, can you guys hear me?
Yes, it's clear, yes.
Okay, perfect. Hello, everyone, professors, my fellow IR members, and all of the IR students that are present today. I hope you're all doing well. My name is Hajar Khamis, and I'll be your moderator for today's seminar. As a member of the IR Society, I would like to welcome you all here today to our first seminar for this semester. If anyone has any questions, please wait for the Q&A session at the end, and my fellow colleague, Mariam Al-Khouri, will take care of it. Basically, today's seminar will circulate around the emergence and the limit of digital diplomacy through the case of China's diplomatic activities in the last decade. And basically, it will contain the history, the limits of digital diplomacy, and why states choose digital diplomacy, and so much more. I hope everyone is just as excited as I am for today. And Dr. Shaojin, the mic is yours.
Thank you, Hajar, for the introduction, and thank you all to come to this webinar, and thanks for IR Society inviting me and organizing this webinar. I hope today we can explore together the emergence and limits of digital diplomacy using my case study of China's diplomatic activities online. How much time I have, Hajar, for presentation? 45 minutes or 1 hour?
I guess 45 minutes, I guess.
Okay.
Since
so
we're late.
I'm going to spend 45 minutes to lay out some basic assumptions and preliminary findings I did with this topic, and with some interactive content to engage you. And then I hope to get as much as suggestions and criticism from you to further my research. So in the beginning, I'm just playing a very short video I saved. It's from the UE Embassy in China by UE Ambassador to China, Mr. Ali, Dr. Ali, that was in March 2020. So the heyday of a COVID outbreak in China. So it's just to give you a taste how the embassies and diplomats start adopting this approach. Did you see the video?
Yes.
Okay. So because I saw you now, Hajar. I thought that everybody didn't see it. So this is the kind of a teaser, for you see that there's evidence that I'm just one of the ambassadors used this approach to conduct diplomatic activities, to send the message to the public and to enhance relationship between China and the UAE. So today I'm going to talk about 4 or 5 topics here. Would you be able to see the slides?
Yes.
Okay, everyone can see it, right? So I'm going to talk about a bit about research significance and methodology, why we research digital diplomacy, and what is the digital diplomacy definition, and brief history of digital diplomacy as I understood. And the central question of today actually is why does state choose digital diplomacy, both from theoretical and practical perspective. We will see if we can answer this question together. Then we will see the limits of digital diplomacy, the motivation, effective and digital divide, and cybersecurity will be covered in this discussion. Apparently, digital diplomacy is not a all-powerful magic. It has its own limits. So we're going to explore that too. Then, mainly, I'm going to present you my research about case of China, how China conduct digital diplomacy, especially in the last 2 years since outbreak of COVID. And then we will try to speculate what's the future study or future of digital diplomacy. And in terms of the first question of research significance, as the video I just shared with you show that internet, AI, VR, all the cloud technologies, internet-based technology has been used in diplomatic field to advance national interest and extend coverage of conventional diplomacy. So that's already happening, I think, in the last 20 or even more. When you see the brief history, when I discuss, I trace the history. And the other reason is the deepening globalization. So in globalization, you have a series of time-space compression and time-space distanciation. In there, they discussed how technology, especially internet technology and digital technology, has brought people's distance ever close. So time and space is really shrinked, compressed in front of you, like in front of your now, in front of your screen or in front of our mobile phone's screen. So this actually bring more change. And of course, this is happening everywhere, all the field, not just in diplomacy. And of course, there's this big thing. Now everybody lives in this pandemic where lockdown and social distancing have become a new normal. And digital diplomacy emerged as the most common and powerful way to advance national interests and foreign policy goals, propagate political position, and deliver public messages. So everybody's have to use it. You are forced to use it. You have to use it. It's not a choice. It's a must. So that's, I think, the big thing now. So I would argue that digital diplomacy is not just instrumental. It's not just a tool during COVID. It's going to become a new, independent, new field, a new resource, new platform for nations to conduct political communication, foreign policy, coordination, cooperation. Even conflict could happen in the digital cloud space when you conduct diplomacy. So that's why I think this is a new emerging field we should pay attention to, we should study. So how to study this topic? I just lay out some generic methodological recommendations. We can study digital diplomacy as an instrument, like as a tool. So that's the one way to look at. The other one is we look at the digital diplomacy as a message or as the content. So in the conferences or in the diplomatic activity, they are talking about the digital itself, digital economy, digital currency, etc., etc. So digital security. So digital itself become a message, content of this diplomatic activity. And then we can start digital diplomacy as a context. See what context or what environment factor made digital diplomacy become a choice or become a field. So there's a 3 ways you can look at this concept. Now, from 2 to 8 in these slides, I said archive research of diplomatic records. So now with the technologies advancement, there's huge series of records, data there for you to explore. You don't have to get into those specific professional data. It's so much public data available. So you can do archive research of the specific topics or period or country, as I did. I'm doing in China, and we look at those public diplomatic digital records, and then do a content analysis or archival research. So majority of all the news outlets and content are online now. And more specifically, I think you studied in the research master class of content analysis, political or diplomatic statements online. As we just saw this, Dr. Ali, the ambassador's speech, he just made just one minute. So how can you make out of it? You know, why he delivered this message? You know, what is the context? What is the audience? And what goal he want to achieve? So these are things you can do with digital diplomatic analysis. So in my research today, I'm going to using this number 4 and 6 and 7, which I put in yellow. So I'm going to kind of use interpretation of digital trends of keyword searching, positioning, or following. So basically, our best friend now is Google, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Baidu, Facebook. Baidu and TikTok or Douyin is the Chinese version of those technology tools, social media tools, right? So this, you just go to this public social media platform, and the nice thing is like you can find the trends, you know, and so following, searching, posts of keywords. You are, for example, if you want to see digital diplomacy, like which country searched this most, right? So there's an indication, and Google and Twitter, they already made the trends analysis for you, and your job is just to interpret, you know, what does it mean with your knowledge and series method learned from IR. So, for example, I just showed this brief one. I just did this afternoon. This is the last about 15 years of the search on Google of this word, digital diplomacy. So you see there's an up and downs. And then below, actually, if you do this again, you can see which country has the most searches. Ironically, it's not China, it's not USA who has the most searches of digital diplomacy. Do you know which one? Can you guess which country has most searches of digital diplomacy? This keyword. In fact, it's Nigeria. I was a little bit surprised. Maybe some African specialists can explain why digital diplomacy is the most searched word in Nigeria compared to other countries. So very interesting. And not Korea, Nigeria. So, so this is one thing you can explain. You can do the same with other keywords, right? And also you can do in other platforms like Twitter, Instagram, etc. In China, as you know, China has a special or different digital policies. With everything I mentioned here, Google, Twitter, Facebook, they have the Chinese version of it. Like, so for Google, we have Baidu, it's a Chinese search engine. And for Twitter, we have Weibo. And for Instagram, I think you have Meipian. So basically, once you are in China, plus you have to, you know, adopt those, and you have no access to all this your familiar things. So when I'm doing research, I search both. So I search this English social media platform and also the Chinese one, so to see the trend. Yeah. And then interviews on key practitioners of digital diplomacy, like officials, diplomat, IT expert, meeting planners. So now I think with digital diplomacy, you can expand your research scope a lot. You can interview more people compared to the past. And then ethnography of field work on sites of digital diplomacy, like telemeetings and online space, social media. So you just go and observe what people are, how people are interacting. And it might be sometimes, you know, it might be a boring job, you know, to try to attending all these kind of online meetings. And but as a researcher, I think you must have a sharp eye to tease out what is going on inside. Besides all these talks and statements and formalities, I think you can dig out something useful. And then case studies or comparative case studies, which I'm doing here, case study with China. And in general, so I think this topic needs both mixed method of a quantitative and qualitative method. If you are savvy at statistics, you know, statistical analysis, you can get access to some big data data banks. You can get big things from there. Then even better, even better. Yeah. I think for nowadays all the social media platform they collect the data, and from the back channel you can see much more clear, because the public available is limited. I think the you see from the back channel has more data, more they have all the customization and trend and patterns of the data. For example, how they search our consumption behavior, our patterns. You like to buy iPhones or Huawei phone. All this were available in those big text database, but we don't have access. So if you are lucky, get that one and just laugh with yourself. So, and here are a few research questions I posed to myself, and also here today, if some of you today you are interested to have a perspective on this, and more than welcome to contribute. So the definition of digital diplomacy, and why did digital diplomacy emerge, and what have changed in the evolution of digital diplomacy, and why do the states adopt digital diplomacy? So this is again, I'll repeat, central question. And what is the limit? And what does the case of China's digital diplomacy tell us about the DDD, etc., and the future of digital diplomacy? So, as notorious to know, any term in political science, international relations there is no definitive, there is no fixed definition or monolithic definition. There are so many of them. So similar thing can be said about digital diplomacy. So I tentatively define it as a term to describe the process or way of conducting foreign policy and protocol of external relations through digital means, such as internet, mobile devices, social media, cloud meetings. Right. So basically, diplomacy in digitalized form. Although this is actually very common and easy to understand definition. Although that definition may be more focused on the instrumental definition of this term. So I want to add a little bit more layers to this. So there's another term for this concept they call it e-diplomacy, because happening through electronic devices, right? Cyber diplomacy is happening on cyberspace, online diplomacy, cloud diplomacy. So nowadays, especially video conferences, digital diplomacy through video conference must using cloud technology. In China, actually, they don't use the digital diplomacy term. They used cloud diplomacy, like 云外交, cloud diplomacy. Yeah. And also somebody tell you also use Twitter diplomacy because many diplomats, state officials use Twitter as a platform and use Twitter then more than other platforms. I think that's what they call Twitter diplomacy, etc. So with all this what we call ICT, information and communication technology, it has become a integrated to conduct diplomatic activity in more efficient interpersonal and interactive ways. Other scholars I cited here, they have a bit different definition of digital diplomacy than from me. So I think I don't have a problem with their definition. I think it's pretty much there's consensus that the digital means, this technical means, internet must be in the definition. That I think as long as we agree on that, then it's fine. And I think more disagreement is about diplomacy. Think about diplomacy has been around for so many centuries, but still I think scholars and practitioners has no consensus on the term diplomacy. So here I lay out a brief history of digital diplomacy. So since 1960s and 80s, digital technology has actually become used in military security and some occasionally in diplomatic field, but that's not common. and apparently definitely not for day-to-day or public diplomacy activity. And then after the Cold War, post-Cold War, 1991, 2000, from now, let's see, we've seen the rise of digital technology, and especially among the OECD countries, rich countries, North countries, developed countries. This has been very much proliferated, to help to advance their national interest. And see, I also mentioned that this new liberal globalization happening in 1990s and 2000. This again, the role of a technology sometimes even exaggerated. So they tend to, oh, see, let's do it digital way, let's do it internet, let's do it online. So this, it seems that this can solve a big problem. And then one paper actually found there's information technology and diplomacy in a changing environment, published by Dr. Zhu Wan, is in 1996. So far, that's the first academic paper I found talking about digital diplomacy. And again, another event I think more familiar to you guys here is Arab Spring, right? So Arab Spring really demonstrates that, okay, the powerful role of Twitter or social media in mobilizing revolutions, in regime change, and in shaping public opinion and even public diplomacy. So I think that's from then on, and I think Twitter, Arab Spring sometimes was called Twitter Revolution. And then again, lastly, this big thing now we are living now, this pandemic. So we have to use digital for everything. So as I said, digital diplomacy means digitalization of diplomacy at all levels. I mean, all levels. So you can start from the top level. So between the world leaders, national leaders, they conduct the summits, leader summits, like they're eating lunch, very common. So I think 2 sessions of a UN General Assembly last year and this year, they all conduct mostly online. And G20 conferences last year in Saudi Arabia, this year in Italy, I think many sessions are online. They are supposed to be those big leaders supposed to come, but they didn't. And then the climate summit, which supposed to be the climate change, supposed to be like a unifying theme in such a divided and conflict world we live in today. But that summit again is online. It's happening in March. That's the top level. Then move down, you have diplomatic protocols and negotiations between foreign ministries, like ministerial level, Minister of Foreign Affairs. So their protocols and negotiations also more and more often shaped by this use of digital or internet technologies. Again, that's common. And then even move down the public diplomacy by embassies and foreign missions. You see the wide use of digital media and platforms to reach out to the hosting country, to reach out their own constituencies and to reach out to the public. But the video I just played in the beginning of the talk, the Dr. Ali's again is an example, right? It's to the public. And move down, people-to-people exchange, or what we call people's diplomacy or popular diplomacy. So that's already happening, I think, happening. Because everybody's on social media now. The government has to also adopt the open account on social media to reach the basis. One example I'll give you again from China is like in China there's this famous app called Douyin, which is the Chinese version of a TikTok. Or you will see there's a TikTok for foreigners and for Chinese Douyin. So Ministry of Foreign Affairs of China, they opened an account on Douyin last year. Why it is on Europe? Because Douyin actually in China we thought Douyin is for for uneducated people, for people from village, they make very some jokes, some pranks, and not serious. It's just very fun. And so now you see the Ministry of Foreign Affairs open like official account in the popular, funny, like grassroots, even uneducated short video platform. That's something very interesting. Yeah, and more so is economic, culture, education, diplomacy. Now everything is done online. Yeah, I think you've seen a lot. So, am I right? By seeing digitalization of diplomacy at all levels, do you agree? And the question for you here is for the students now: is Dubai Expo 2020 considered digital diplomacy, or we are called? What do you think? There's a lot of digital content there, though. Yeah, but I'm not sure if I should call it digital diplomacy or not. So the question I have tentatively answered here is why? Why nations choose digital diplomacy for their means? So of course, as a students of international relations, everything, we have to look at from different theoretical lens, right? So we can think about if you are a realist, if you are liberal, or if you are a constructivist, or if you are a Marxist, feminist, you explain this different way, right? For example, you can say, oh, it's just digital, it's just the formalities, even it can be considered deception, whatever they talk in the digital space, in the diplomatic space, it does not count, because they see nice word and they could be very nasty when they are doing the real action. So this is for realism, diplomacy either is useless or it's just an extension of your national capabilities. If you have a strong fist, strong power, whatever you see, you gain everything, whether through military, through diplomatic means. So it depending on how you explain this, right? And for liberalism perspective, I think diplomacy is useful, is important to persuade your counterparties to achieve cooperation, to avoid conflict, right? Because liberals are always looking for cooperation and find a common interest. And so digital diplomacy provide a tool or space for these negotiations and conflict management to happen. And if you are constructivism, of course, you see this digital space or digital as a way to frame the narrative, frame the identity, frame the issue, agenda setting, all these things, So that's, again, it is useful too. So,
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Can I ask you which slide are you on? Because it shows basically to everyone that you're still on the outline. Can you move it?
Really?
Yeah,
Oh
I tried moving it. It does not work.
Okay.
I just got them. Sorry for interrupting.
Yes. I'm glad you reminded me. Otherwise, I would be under all the time. Okay. Now I'm on. Sorry, guys. Okay. Here's the slides I'm using. But I think even without the slides, you guys get me. Am I make myself clear? Do I make myself clear? So this is the thing, I just went over. So you didn't miss much. Don't worry. So here's I'm on slide 10. Yeah. So these are the theories I explained, right? Now there's tentative answers to this rationale of digital diplomacy. So of course, first one is efficient. You save time, you save space, you save cost. You don't have to. If you think about the Chinese President Xi Jinping, if he has to meet all the leaders in Africa, in United Nations, and here and then, like, and he'll be exhausted. So he doesn't have, he's sitting in his office and he can call everybody and meet everybody online. So how nice is it? So I think that's, I think is works for all the leaders, you know, if some formalities can be conducted this way. Then second explanation could be influence international public opinion. This we see more like a digital PR. So you try to using digital means, like what you do in the digital marketing, right? Digital communication. So you want to spread your narrative as much as possible, which is the digital media prove. It's just pushed to your fingerhead, to your palm, in front of you. Similarly, we can see about influencing foreign perception and behavior. So a thing we often talk from this soft power and smart power, right? So how you try to use all kind of media in terms of digital media and or digitalized traditional media like TV, newspaper, all this kind of thing. You digitalize in a digital format. You try to influence. I think in diplomacy, when you meet your counterpart, you try to convince, you try to even convert, you know, through negotiation, try to ask the other side to accept your position in the negotiation. Now, I think this had just happened in the digital space. So then we can consider it as an alternative or in complementary or enhancement of a conventional diplomacy in terms of emergency and pandemic. So that's, I think, a very common explanation because we have to do, you know, we have no other ways. Let's stick on digital. But this question is worth researching further is like after COVID, after the pandemic, after this emergency situation, do you think digital diplomacy will be staying or it will be forget by everyone? You know, that's the thing we should you know, consider. And lastly, the rationale for digital diplomacy is to construct or start initial new movement, narrative, and perspective through digital means to assist state agendas. So commonly this kind of social movement or frames will be conducted through organization or other grassroots organizations, but now you just use digital means. So example I gave here is, you know, there was a boycott of Turkish goods in Saudi Arabia last year. It actually, it was launched by a Saudi Commerce of Saudi Chamber of Commerce. It's supposedly it's a like non-state actor, you know, non-state actor. So it was very successful actually through digital means. And so you just call people on pages, oh, don't buy Turkish goods, then people observe, you know, people comply. So it was something interesting. But of course, this assists the state goals. Okay, now I move to my case study of China. So I show a few pictures. This one is just very fresh, just 3 or 4 days ago, when Chinese President Xi Jinping, he delivered a video speech to the opening of Dubai Expo 2020 on August 1st. So this message, his video message, is delivered on the big screen of China Pavilion in Dubai Expo. And when ruler of Dubai, His Highness Sheikh Mohammed, toured and pavilion and appeared at the opening ceremony, they played this video, this video speech to him, and I think he said something similar back, you know, reciprocal. So it's you can say, oh, it's just like, you know, protocol, you know, formalities, doesn't mean any substantive things. One comment I'll add here is, yes, you are right by saying that, but it's interesting if you compare other big powers, you know, some countries send their actual presidents to their opening ceremony here in Dubai Expo. And some countries like Xi Jinping, they send video messages by appearing themselves. Still, other countries did not send anything, like USA. You know, Biden did not send himself and didn't send video message to this. So this kind of small things, formality things, protocol things, maybe indicate preferences or change of foreign policy. As we can argue that, oh, see, now Biden has been trying to keep some distance from UAE because of previous administration Trump's legacy. You can make some argument by comparing how white leaders did not appear in Expo, or maybe we can say, oh, it's just over interpretation. He just not convenient, or maybe he forgot. And the other picture I show is this World Leaders Summit on Climate Change. This is March 2021. Because this picture is taken from Xinhua News Agency, the Chinese state media. They always put Xi Jinping, the big picture and in the top. Yeah, of course, I think if you take the one from American media, their leader would be in the center and the bigger, appear bigger. So if the Chinese media didn't do that, and they would make a big mistake. Yeah. The third one is less Xi Jinping centric. Let's see. So this is showing foreign minister meetings of Sino-Latin American response to COVID-19. It was against last April, I guess. So this is just some snapshot. In fact, China did it with all the regions. China did it with Latin American, with Middle East, with Africa, with Europe, and the only thing they didn't do, I think, is USA because of this competition. So they did the cloud meetings with all the regions, all majority of the countries. Later on, I will show you the statistics they just did. So there's this big discussion. How can I make it bigger? Is it possible to make it big? Is it big enough for you? Can you see? If you cannot see, it's fine. I'll read for you. Yeah. So China's intense digital diplomacy. So the puzzle for me here is why China suddenly increased digital diplomacy in the last few years, especially since COVID. So let me describe this phenomenon to you in this slide. First of all, as pandemic rolls over, China, like many other countries, have started to opt for digital diplomacy to achieve policy goals. So China not only actively participated in international meetings online, such as G20 Summit in 2020 and Global Health Summit hosted by WHO last year and this year, and many. But China itself initiated, hosted, launched its own version of international online conferences to address many issues, especially the pandemic. And not only Chinese government is doing that, but Chinese private sectors, Chinese think tanks, Chinese media, Chinese citizens all start doing digital diplomacy. So the big question is, why? So I'll give you more evidence. So we see online and multilateral and bilateral government-to-government meetings and talks happening. As the pictures, I just give you a few examples. This is the online version of a traditional interstate diplomatic activity when heads of the state, heads of the government, ministers, ambassadors, and civil servants participate in often closed and invited formal meetings and forums. Examples including World Health Summit video conference, NICE ministerial meetings of China Arab State Cooperation Forum, etc. So for this, I just want to mention this is more to do with Chinese domestic politics. In all this international diplomatic online meetings, often you see only a few people. Xi Jinping, often the most frequent leader appear on this because he's the leader, the number one, right? Big boss. Then you have a minister of foreign affairs, Wang Yi, and then another one, Yang Jiechi. He's in charge of also in charge of foreign affairs. So these are three faces you see much often. But you might wonder what happened to others. How about Premier Li Keqiang? What happened to him? Because he's the head of the government, and he has also foreign policy profiles too. So what happened to him? So there's a lot of speculation talking about politics, faction politics, and Xi Jinping was made as the central figure. Now it's more like Xi Jinping's one-person rule rather than a collective leadership of a 7-person political bureau. So this one, I don't bother you here. It's just interesting to further research. And even economic activities are happening online. So you have online trade, on digital exhibitions, cloud demonstrations, etc. So we already know the cross-border e-commerce like Alibaba, Taobao, all this, Amazon, all happened. But in China, mainly talk about Alibaba. But it is rare to move procedures of global value chain or transaction online, like an exhibition, negotiation, signing a contract, sales, online payment, even after service warranty. They all provide online. So it's like this, you don't have to go to the mall at all, or go to the shopping center at all, physically. So one example, there's one guy, he sponsored Dubai Expo 2020. He provided all the robots. If you go to Dubai Expo 2020, you see all the robots provided by this company from China. So from the beginning until the end of the signed, like what you call the sponsorship deal, like actual contract, and they never meet. They never met the Dubai Expo official, and Dubai Expo official never met the Chinese sponsor. So that's just happened. You finish the transaction all online for this big amount of money and such a high-profile event. So I give other amounts. I personally appeared. I participated, like China Trade Week, organized by Chinese International Commerce, International Chamber of Commerce, and 5th China Arab States exhibition, and Dubai Expo 2020 opening ceremony actually happened online too, because big Chinese official could not travel to Dubai, so they opened the ceremony virtually. Yeah, opening ceremony. Then this is specific to Expo 2020. Sorry, my bad. COVID-19. After COVID-19, there's a lot of telemedics. You know, telemedics? Tele means long distance, So long distance medical care, online knowledge sharing, and virtual consultation to combat COVID-19 pandemic. In fact, I think in last March and April, I got so many this kind of requests. This, oh, Dr. Shaojin, can you help us to beat COVID-19 by spread this knowledge? What is that? What knowledge? It's like, this is the Chinese doctors, their experience of combat COVID-19. So you see the Tencent, the famous IT company in China, they provide a free online doctor. So if you go online, you just search the Tencent online virtual doctor, you actually get a volunteer doctor who will answering questions about COVID-19. But apparently that doesn't really help to reduce numbers because this is such a difficult disease. But at least they started this initiative. And Alibaba did the same. They distribute all over the world, and they find the translators in all the kind of languages. These are all volunteers. They translate this pandemic prevention handbook or manual in, I think, in many languages, and they distribute them, of course, virtually, like in ebook format. It's remains to be seen how useful they are. I mean, apparently, they didn't really help much, but it shows the drives, the campaigns they did with them. Yeah, it's a good question. Is this something new or just doing digitally? Correct. So I wrote a paper last year, and hopefully it will publish this year by Routledge on an edited volume about Chinese soft power and cultural diplomacy driving the Middle East. So where China has been sending the TVs, newspapers, Confucius Institute, sending the Chinese teachers to the region. Actually, in many places, but my focus is in Middle East regions. So, but now that I think the pandemic did not interrupt that. Actually, the Chinese culture, educational, media diplomacy continued digitally during the pandemic. And one example I quote here is in University of Jeddah in Saudi Arabia. During the high day of COVID, April last year, a Confucian Institute was established in University of Jeddah. So it was very interesting. Yeah, of course, digitally. They had the meeting, launch ceremony digitally. Yeah. Let me see. Yeah. So here I show a picture of Chinese Ministry of Foreign Affairs. They have a Twitter page. Why I make this? Because there's this big thing you might know. In China, the Chinese citizens, if you are living in China, you cannot access Twitter. But Chinese government allow some officials and some ministries to have a Twitter page, like Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and some diplomats, like a famous one, Zhao Lijian, Hua Chongying. These are some you saw them very often to give a statement on behalf of Ministry of Foreign Affairs. So these people, they are allowed to have Twitter. So what this tells you, about this digital diplomacy, So maybe one thing you can like Chinese way of digital diplomacy more is the state-centric, more is the government dominant. Chinese government does not really encourage citizens, private people to go for diplomacy. Apparently, like this diplomacy means official, right? Government to government. So I'm going to skip this. Okay, I'll just again repeat some. We're not. There are two links, but because of time, I'm not going to do that. So basically, on these two links, 1 and 2, the new Xinhua News Agency, Chinese State Media, and the People's Daily, they summarized the cloud meetings of Xi Jinping. So I think in May itself, May 2021, Xi Jinping appeared, I think, more than 40 some cloud meetings. Like you can count like more than one cloud meeting per day with foreign leaders. So this is very high frequency. So China continued the campaigns of present a good Chinese image and tell a good China story campaigns. So this is this two sentence here is the guiding principle of a Chinese soft power or media diplomacy or diplomacy in general. So you always try to present a good Chinese image and tell good China stories. One thing actually recently appeared a lot is what we called warrior diplomacy on Twitter. So you see a few Chinese officials and especially diplomats, they went on Twitter and very vehemently and strongly refuted or responded to some accusations, remarks from Western media or Western diplomats or Western government, especially from USA. I think you can think of this as in the context of a China-US rivalry in the last few years. So there are a few key things like trade war launched by Trump, right? So during the trade war, you see so much tweet exchange every day between Chinese diplomats and on Twitter with US counterparts. And then you have this question of a pandemic, So the pandemic is there are a lot of blame pointing fingers to each other, especially between US and China. So this, again, the Chinese diplomat has been responded to the accusations against China a lot. And also this question of camps, the internment camps or the concentration camps of Uyghur Muslims in Northwest China. So that again will become like flash points of this called warrior diplomacy. And high-tech wars, the Huawei ban of Huawei and technology, and the arrest and release of Meng Wanzhou, the CFO of Huawei company. So all these events actually, you saw the, I call it the proxy war happening on Twitter between US and China or China and with other powers. So that actually didn't fight the war, but they are fighting on Twitter like a war. So why they are called warrior diplomacy? Because the Chinese diplomats, they are like war warriors. There's a very famous movie made in few years in China. There's one guy, he's playing like a war warrior, like what is it called this American hero type thing. He saved the world. So in this movie, this Chinese guy, war warrior, his nickname is war warrior. He saved I think he saved African or he saved some countries just alone. So it's very assertive, very strong position. So they use this to refer to the strong position of Chinese diplomats. And of course, there's this Chinese netizens activities. What is netizen? Internet citizens. We call them netizens. Yeah. So many Chinese netizens actually they went on the internet to defend China's position, official position, or some popular positions. So even some Chinese social influencers, and there's a term in China we call the Xiaofenhong, little red pinks. You know what is little red pinks? Because the Chinese flag is red, Chinese color is red. So little red pinks are those who love China, those citizens who love China and young. We call them little red pinks, or we call the 5 cents party. What is 5 cents party? So in the old, like a few years ago in China, if you were there's a trolls or the people hired by Chinese government, you post a message about positive about China, and then you earn 5 cents of US dollars. So that's we call them 5 cents party. So these guys, they always trolling the good story of China. So but you see there are people who are really serious, who really love China. You want to defend China. There's people who are hired by Chinese government or entities to defend China. So you have, like, it's difficult to discern them. And you saw young hyper nationalists, they are very defensive of China. So my last important thing to say is why China did these things. So I offer a few explanations. First one is to counter China's threat theory and rise of xenophobia in the world. So there's a lot of media xenophobia, China's threat theory is down there. So China thinks that is bad. You want to counter the narrative through digital diplomacy. And in particular, during the COVID, there's this thing called who started, who leaked it. So American, US, and China pointing fingers on each other, like where did this COVID virus come from, So China said you leak it, and US said you leak it. So they pointing fingers at each other, and a lot of Twitter wars and media wars about that, and a lot of diplomatic statement and diplomatic meetings actually also is about that, And I said we beat it. We beat it. So in many these diplomatic digital meetings, you see China showing said, "Oh, we have controlled pandemic. See, nobody's wearing mask in China." And when you have a meeting, like I attend a few meetings, so everybody is from outside of China. They all sitting in front of their own computer, in their own house or maximum office. But everybody in China, they are in a big hall, and they are sitting together. So this is not, see, we beat it, we controlled the pandemic, and you guys still didn't do it. But there's a positive thing here. Like they try to deliver this message all are together. China launched a lot of soft power, what I call charm offensive, to present the good stories of China, and also to show China's high-tech power and the advanced cloud technology, digital technology. They can run digital meetings smoothly, etc. So to favor the, all these big techs in China, Huawei, Tencent, Alibaba, TikTok, Baidu, they all have its own digital meeting platforms. Everybody's trying to promote through hosting or sponsoring the digital diplomatic activities. And the last reason is that China may use digital diplomacy as a bargaining chip or negotiation tactics. So one example is like in what is it called? In early March, John Kerry, the new special envoy of climate change of U.S. government, he arrived in Shanghai. He said, "I want to meet Chinese leader." You know what happened? Chinese leader did not meet him, like especially top leaders. They meet him online. Even he's in China, in Shanghai, they did not allow him to go to Beijing, and they meet him in Shanghai. I interpret it as a way to Chinese pressure USA, try to give a little bit of disagrees or lower the diplomatic protocol. Then there's another meeting by I think Undersecretary of State Department of U.S. Ms. Sherman. He arrived in Tianjin. Tianjin is like half an hour from Beijing. Then even then didn't meet her. At least Xi Jinping, Li Keqiang, all the top leaders did not meet her. I think even only Wang Yi, the Minister of Foreign Affairs, met her. So the Americans seems very disappointed. And the Chinese netizens are celebrating. See, the China showed the power, not to bow down to American pressure. So here are a few charts at the end, is to show the mixed view of China around the globe. You see that basically from this chart, the Pew Research Center is that after COVID, there's huge unfavorable views against China, especially in OECD countries, in rich countries, in Western countries. And in contrast to Chinese favorable views in developing countries, in Africa, in Middle East, in Latin America. So you have this divided views on China. I use this as evidence why China is launching digital diplomacy to counter this China threat on negative views about China. Right? So this is divided and favorable opinion in developing countries in China. The most favorite greetings come from Russia, and then Nigeria, then Lebanon. So you see all these are non-Western countries. And most unfavorable views against China from Japan, from Sweden and Canada. So these are more further some data. You can see it was done last year, just 1 year ago by Pew Research Center. I have to check if they did the latest one this year. But as you see, it was very unfavorable views from developed countries against China. Increasing negativity evaluation of China. Actually, you see the change in developed democratic countries. And this is another chart. Yeah. And there's a product, I think I don't have time to finish. It's Xenophobia Tracker Global. So this website established by some Chinese who live in US, they track xenophobia incidents. Like if you're Chinese, you think you are being discriminated against, or some people attacked you because you are Chinese, you report to this project. We try to run the statistic model based on that. As I said, in Arab world, in Middle East, and in developing countries in general, there's a much more favorable views toward China. So these are some data I did many years ago. Someone did it. I used in my research paper. If you want to discuss this today, then it will be. We can do it in Q&A. This is about comparison about Arab parameter in last year. So you see increasing favorable view of China against USA. You can see, this is because China had this, China had that, or you can see it's because of China's digital diplomacy activities. And so also this chart is also interesting. Many Middle Eastern countries prefer stronger relations with China, especially economic relations. For example, in Jordan, you have 70% prefer to have relations with China. And here comes to our country, UAE. So UAE has very strong preference to have China as ally. 73% Arab youth think China can be a good ally. It's more than USA, which is 56%. Okay, just a few. This is a few pictures, and there's a criticism. You can see a lot. The Chinese digital diplomacy is not very useful. It's assertive, uniform, rigid, or it's state-centric. It is propaganda, etc. So, and it's also maybe create a lot of the potential for data privacy and cybersecurity issues. So these are, I think, the many criticism against digital diplomacy in general can be also said about China. But I would say mainly it's about China's way of conducting diplomacy. I think more like a lot of commentators say it's more like a propaganda. It's not really diplomacy or persuasion. Okay, thanks for your attention. And again, I think I forgot to move the. Did I forget to move the slides?
I guess, yes, you forgot.
Oh, I was, yeah, because when I moved to my thing, so I forgot to move the slides. Bad. Okay, yeah. So this is a slide. I can give you more if you are interested. Or when I ask the questions, we'll stop here. Let's see. Yeah, Hajar, back to you. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Professor. Thank you. It was an amazing webinar. Thank you so much. And anyone, if you have any question, you would like to say something to Professor Shaojin, you can just raise your hand, or you can just type it and I'll read it for you guys. Basically, Professor, there's a question earlier from Dr. Steven. He was asking, is this really new in the sense that things are being done differently, or is just convenient in the sense that is easier and more cost effective and quicker, but still a version of the same thing?
Yes, I would argue that I try to demonstrate or that digital diplomacy will increasingly become independent or intact field of diplomacy, not a simply extension or complementary or alternative of traditional conventional diplomacy. Once, because it has its own features or its own characteristics by being digital. I think that would be my answer. Of course, I have a long way to prove, how different that is, from the conventional diplomacy. So I would disagree that digital diplomacy is like a digitalization of conventional diplomacy. I don't think that's simple, but I think it's become another field, another area with its uniqueness.
Thank you, Doctor. We have Dr. Saif as well.
Hi, hello. First of all, thank you so much, Shaojin, for giving this talk today. I feel like I have a really good insight on digital diplomacy and how China is moving in this sphere. One thing that I would like to add to what you've talked about today is I feel like the UAE also has its a very interesting approach when it comes to digital diplomacy. I feel like, we've always had this kind of emphasis and focus on diplomacy through memorandums of understanding and through bilateral meetings and having a lot of diplomats being hosted at events and sessions. And I feel like the digital turn that we've also experienced here in the UAE due to COVID has, in a way, kind of made it easier for the public to participate in these kinds of sessions and these kinds of events. I'm seeing a lot of webinars, a lot of MOUs that are open to the public because they're online and the signing happens on and the signing process happens online. And so it's a lot easier for members of the public, members of just the normal civil society to engage with this kind of thing. Whereas, before COVID, a lot of, this high level diplomacy was closed doors behind, some kind of exclusive event where access is gated by a ticket that you have to purchase. And, at the end of the day, I think it's one of the things that you mentioned as a positive of digital diplomacy was the fact that it opens and engages with the public more than normal channels of diplomacy. So I feel like the UAE is really doing doing that in this kind of sphere as well, this kind of space. Just a comment on that. Have you noticed anything specific between UAE-Chinese relations with regards to digital diplomacy beyond? By the way, wonderful that Xi Jinping gave us a video call. I'm really appreciative of that. I honestly, my heart is broken. I know Joe Biden's got a lot of stuff on his plate. It wouldn't look good for him to take a couple of days off to come over to Expo, especially with so many things up in the air over in Congress right now. But, if he really cared, he would have made the time. So hats off to Xi as well. Thanks.
Yes, I like your comments. Yes, there's this debate in digital diplomacy that will this change how diplomacy was done? Is done actually. So in the past, as you said, diplomacy seemed to be closed door, secretive, elitist, and either in the hands of a few, right? And so now with this digital diplomacy, and does it means you can open more space, allow more citizen participation, and have more outreach, more coverage? Because if you can prove to the decision makers that, okay, digital diplomacy is in the interest of them, so it's better to have public engagement and to have transparency, maybe that will change, how diplomacy is done through digital means. But apparently, still the world is not perfect, and you have a difference in terms of regime. You have democracies, dictatorships. You have different way of a different understanding, and there's certain issues are very supposed to be classified and not true. So all this, I think, will still constrain how digital diplomacy will transform diplomacy itself. So it's open new areas, I think, new field. It's really in terms of cultural diplomacy, public diplomacy, people-to-people exchange, media. This all, I think, for sure, we will see a lot of role played by digital diplomacy. But those top, what we call high security issues, national security, military, intelligence, I think wouldn't happen. I think it wouldn't happen even with they said encrypt encrypt channels. That's even couldn't happen because all the people you heard this of five-eyed alliances. You heard many accusations between China and US and others, like surveillance, the leaking of information. So I think that's what to limit digital diplomacy's usage in those high security issues. But by the way, congratulations for the Expo, and yeah, definitely, I agree with you. Biden should have, be more diplomatic, I guess. It's a world event. It's not just for UAE, it's for the world. Yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Shaojin. Thank you, Dr. Saif. We have Dr. Abdurrahman as well.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Shaojin, for a very interesting presentation. And my comment relates to the digital divide, or the fact that most people in this world do not have access to computers and the internet because of the low limited internet and computer penetration in their societies. And I think we should be realistic about the usefulness of the digital divide, given this fact, the fact that most people on Earth do not have access to computers and the internet. And this should lead us, to also emphasize the role of traditional media, the radio, the TV, and the press. They are also very effective tools to convey people's opinions, especially in those countries which have limited computer and internet penetration in their societies. Digital diplomacy should not be seen as an alternative to traditional ways of doing diplomatic things. They should be seen as a complementary factor in this equation. Even in developed countries where we have high internet and computer penetration in the society, still some leaders are not computer and even internet literate. Tony Blair, the former British Prime Minister, did not know how to use the internet. So when we talk about digital democracy, I think we should specify the levels of government where this thing is really being used. I don't think leaders, like top leaders in countries, even in developed countries, use it because of the fact that many of them are maybe internet illiterate. The point here is that digital diplomacy should not be seen as an alternative to traditional diplomacy because of the fact that person-to-person contact, the human factor is very important in diplomacy. Dehumanizing our relations by just using digitization in our life, I don't think is the way to go. People talk about these people like Herbert Alexander Simon, the one who got Nobel Prize in economics in 1978, and the one who wrote a lot about artificial intelligence, gave us advice before he died. I think like 10 years ago. Don't let technology dehumanize people's lives, because if this happens, we may be stratified. We may be turned into like machines that don't think. That's my comment. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much. I kind of agree with you about the last point about dehumanizing ourselves. We shouldn't allow technology to dictate us, to control us, to dehumanize us. Agreed. And also you mentioned the digital divide. So I put it here in the slides, you can see. The digital divide and domination of technical superpower is often is a criticism brought to digital diplomacy that, oh, see, you only those developed countries who have internet, electricity, and cloud technology can afford have access or reliable access for digital diplomacy. Others couldn't. And so in China's case, actually, China actually provided many this kind of equipment or technology for those developing countries in order to have a digital diplomacy. But of course, this can be another issue. Could be, oh, does it mean China has more domination and more power over that state? So that's you have more and more always this kind of issue emerges. I hope if we really cannot avoid digital diplomacy, or since this already is around us here, is maybe people who distinguish between this really in person-to-person, authentic, digital diplomacy, authentic diplomacy, which is, as you said, more into the in person, traditional way. But for those more to like outreach, for publicity, for PR, even for propaganda, leave them to digital diplomacy, so that this is in this you can see there are two subfields within the diplomacy. Now I'm still like, it's not a very immature idea. If that happens, I mean, like if you want to talk about real stuff, you know, serious stuff, sincere stuff, let's meet in person. But if you just, you know, propaganda or publicity, let's go to digital. So maybe people would able to make this distinction, and then maybe things can be done more efficiently. Problem now is like sometimes people cannot distinguish between these two. Is it diplomacy or is it propaganda or is it publicity? It's difficult. Thank you for your comment.
Thank you again, Dr. Shaojin, and thank you, Dr. Abdurrahman, as well. Thank you, everyone.
I have something to add. Can I?
Yes, Hajar, please.
Okay. As I said, I believe that digital diplomacy is a soft power tool, and I believe that personally, I believe that diplomacy has its own immunity. So as you have mentioned, like the proxy war, the online proxy war on Twitter between China and the USA is a great example to say that, okay, it is efficient, it is convenient, but it has many downsides, okay? And especially when like a tool is in the hands of a very, how can I say this? A diplomat that acts unprofessional on Twitter, Mr. Trump. As we can say, what happens on social media stays on social media, and I believe that that's the downside of it. So, it can poison the diplomatic relations because what happens on social media stays on social media. So it leads to like poisoning the diplomatic relations for months. Yeah, that's the only thing I'm gonna.
Yeah, Hajar, it's a very interesting observation. I should have looked into this. Like the people attack each other on Twitter, like with their position being diplomats or state officials. Should we, you know, should the state, should the government, should we take them seriously? Because see, one thing people say, oh, is he speaking on behalf of his government, or he's just speaking for himself as a social media user? For example, Pompeo, he said, okay, he tweeted that, okay, you know, China virus, you know, China leaked this to the world, so it's your problem. And does it reflect the Chinese like official U.S. position, or it's just like Pompeo, he's as a state of Secretary of State, his personal thing? Again, we can see the similar about Chinese diplomats on Twitter. Because already there's a Ministry of Foreign Affairs official account. Then you have Mr. Zhao Lijian, he's a spokesperson of Chinese Ministry for his former ambassador to China to Pakistan. He's very aggressive on Twitter. Like he's a fully warrior. With his comments there, he accused, oh, it was US who leaked this virus in Maryland or somewhere. Then, but the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of China did not publish this at all. They did not even retweet him. So this is which position should we take seriously? Should we take the Ministry of Foreign Affairs account, or should we take Zhao Lijian's account? I mean, I think this is a good, as you mentioned, it's a good thing. It could have a sad effect or backlash that you, as a diplomat, if you make this unprofessional, irresponsible comments, then it can damage the relationship, which may not really reflect your country's position. But on the other hand, this diplomat, they can see something government is not inconvenient to see. For example, maybe Chinese government think that way, but they don't want to see it so blatantly. So they allow this person to say from his mouth and to test what's your reaction or to put some pressure. But my approach is like never take something online and on social media seriously. You know, that's the internet life. You should retreat. You know, you have a good personal life. You know, don't be disturbed by them. Don't take that serious. I mean, sometimes I fight online with people. You know, then I come back home and I'm still happy. But some people, they fight online with people and they are upset whole day. Oh, this guy online cursed me. I'm not happy with it. Why bother, you know? So I don't think we shouldn't take that seriously. If it's, especially on social media. Maybe it's defeat my purpose of doing this presentation. The point I'm making is like digital diplomacy has a role to play. Now I'm saying that we shouldn't take them seriously. But I think more to do is personal. You know, we shouldn't be emotional or sentimental. I think we should deal with rationally. Yeah, those online comments, whether they are made by individuals or by the state officials.
Yeah, I think there's always some kind of middle ground to be struck between populists and people that like having a lot of online engagement. You were talking about Zhao, but I really like Chen Weihua Chen. He's really funny.
Yeah.
He's really funny on Twitter, I have to admit. He's got a lot of zingers in him. So I don't know. I feel like there's always this kind of back and forth between the quote unquote civilized part of social media and perhaps some people that are looking for some kind of populist, nationalist kind of engagement, and for them it's like easy to go for the low-hanging fruit, to go for the below the belt punchline. So for sure, I think both sides kind of have the a fight in this one.
I was curious just to follow maybe some Hajar, or see if you can just quickly answer. Is there like a similar type of a wolf warrior for the UAE? Like someone from UAE, they're just fighting online to defend 100%,
UAE? Yes, but I'm not going to say his name.
Okay. You should study him then.
There is definitely one person that is extremely vocal and active on social media, and I'm sure all of the students know who I'm talking about. But yeah, I don't think it's necessary to name names.
But I mean, is he a diplomat or like just a professor or just like social person? Does he represent the UAE government or relate to UAE government?
Yes, very much represents the UAE government.
It's really a digital diplomat.
A very high level representative of the UAE government, very vocal online.
Oh, okay. I know what you were saying. Yeah, okay. Yeah, he is. Yeah, okay.
You love to see it. You love to see the people that they love getting interactions and replies.
Mm-hmm.
So if no one has anything to add, we might as well end it in the seminar, if you allow us, Dr. Shaojin, unless someone has something to say. Oh, Alia has something to say. Okay, she has a question. Since the world is moving towards digital diplomacy, would this also increase cybersecurity issues and tensions between countries? Interesting.
Yeah, good observation. Definitely, this is going to happen. First of all, digital diplomacy itself is going to be under threat from cybersecurity or even cyber terrorism. So I haven't encountered any like a big diplomatic digital activity has been interrupted or sabotaged by cyber hackers or terrorists. But it's happened in our life. One like in April, and my wife and I, we participated in a webinar hosted by UAE University. It's again also about soft power, you know. So I think in the middle of the Zoom meeting, either the meeting was hacked or there's some trolls was put stick into the meeting. So they are posting the very nasty, some poor and naked picture on using others' names. Like for example, suddenly Shaojin tried to post an image, shared a video of a naked woman. So that's not supposed to happen, because that's not me. But somebody they stick into meeting, they changed the name with my name. Then they start posting this kind of thing, and I think eventually this event was cancelled. Even I didn't get a chance to present. So this is, I think, the very fresh and real example happened. So this is the security, and you've heard a lot of Zoom bombardment, during online teachings in many parts. So for diplomatic meeting, I think it's more secured, encrypted, by invitation only. So I think it should be better controlled. But of course, those hackers who want to hack into this, and they are much advanced. Think about two nights ago, what happened to your Facebook, Instagram, and WhatsApp? Yeah, you cannot contact people. So I was going to say, yeah, this maybe we just recovered from hacking or online terrorism attack, attack. The big tech company like Facebook shouldn't, still couldn't handle this. Of course, there's theories behind it. People say, oh, it was their own technical mistakes. And there's other thing, oh, it was a 13-year-old Chinese boy who destroyed it. There's a lot of disinformation, misinformation toward this. This itself is, kind of a negative part of this digital space, including digital diplomacy. So I hope, the states and tech companies and even the users should have more awareness about this potential security and risks of using digital space.
Okay, she's saying, would this put limitations to digital diplomacy since they depend on tech companies?
Yeah, I want to give an example of like one example from USA, one from China. So in the USA, you have this incident happened this year when Trump lost election. So he was complaining on Twitter, and he was able to mobilize so many his supporters, and you see the damage he has done to Capitol Hill, to Americans in general. It was very shocking, right? I think the case is still not closed until today. So and then after that, I think Twitter and Facebook, these big tech companies banned Trump. You can think about how a tech company can ban a president of a superpower, the most powerful country, but they did it. So the Trump supporters, and they said, oh, see, now we are living in the dictatorship of big techs, this big tech economy. So which might equal your comment that, see, the technology company maybe can determine, dominate, shape how diplomacy was done, because technology is in their hand. I'll give you opposite example of China. You know what happened in China in recent days? All the tech people, big tech people, were sidelined. And if they are not sidelined, they have to resign, because there's a lot of explanation, political reasons. I mean, the famous your favorite Jack Ma, even he resigned 2 years ago, but now he was totally evaporated from public life in China. He's not allowed to appear in any official capacity, like official meetings, digital space. Only people post once or twice his private life, but so he's basically silenced. And there's more. So you have this very strong central state, or you can say dictatorial state of Chinese government, which can put big cap, big hand on tech companies. So you have these two models. Which one you prefer? I mean, either they both exist, I cannot say I prefer which one, but maybe the countries like UAE should have achieved some balance, so you can harness the efficiency, innovative power of high techs, but still you would have some control of this high techs, and more important to develop your own platform. Because for the UAE, like if you someday you are launching your conference on Zoom or this digital company which are owned, operated outside of UAE, you don't have your own platform. And even the one we are using now, Microsoft Teams, right? It owns, again, it's foreign owned. So maybe a way is to design and develop your own digital diplomatic tools platform, so that you reduce your reliance on big tech companies and on foreign powers.
Thank you, Doctor. That was a very interesting point to make. So if no one has anything to add or say, do we end this seminar?
Yeah, you should allow them to go back to have dinner. You know, I think everybody's hungry now. Yeah.
I agree. I'm one of them. Okay. Thank you for this interesting and informative seminar. Honestly, it's always great to have more knowledge added to our already existing knowledge about digital diplomacy. And thanks for highlighting China's case in digital diplomacy. It's always great to learn more. Thank you so much. And thank you everyone for attending, the rest of the professors. And yeah.
Thank you, Hajar. Thank you, everyone. Have a good evening.
Yes.